Hello, YouTube. It's your boy GZTV. We are starting a new TV series. I know we did Between a couple days ago. I will probably return to that eventually, but I saw that HBO Max had a Black Friday sale. I'm getting 6 months of HBO Max for only like 12 bucks, 12, 13 bucks. So I just copped it, and we're here to talk about a pretty old, a little older of a crime drama film, The Sopranos. It's like a mobster film or a mobster TV series, which is dope as hell because we've seen good mobster movies like Goodfellas, The Godfather, Reservoir Dogs, and all that stuff. But it'll be interesting to see how they do a TV series. We're talking about the pilot today, obviously the first episode of the series, so let's get into it. For those of you who are Soprano fans and are coming through to check out the channel for it, we just do one big, discussion. We do a review and we do a plots analysis, kind of all in one here. For movies, I usually kind of split them up. For here, though, we're going to kind of review it in its entirety. So, a quote from Tony Soprano: "It's good to be in something from the ground floor, and I came too late for that, I know. But lately, I'm getting the feeling that I came in at the end. The best is over." So, in a psychiatrist's office, New Jersey-based mobster Tony Soprano is framed between the legs of a naked sculpture, which is literally how the show opens. Dr. Jennifer Melfi opens a nearby door and invites Tony to enter her office. After a few moments of uncertainty, she begins by stating that he was referred to her office because he had a panic attack at a family barbecue, and asked him to tell her a bit more about himself. Like, why would this happen to you anyway? So, Tony tells her that he's a waste management consultant, which is obviously a lie. He begins telling her about how he met a friend for coffee, which again is a lie, before she stops and explains the concept of the doctor-patient confidentiality clause, hinting that she understands what he's referring to. Like, she kind of knows that he's not a consultant of this kind. She knows he's kind of like a bad person, and he does super fucked up shit, she knows it. Which, it's kind of funny how she refers to it like that. So, we go through a bunch of flashbacks about his day and like the day of a mobster, pretty much. So, in this flashback, Tony and his nephew Christopher Moltisanti are driving to a meeting. Tony rails at Christopher for being lazy, and soon afterward, they see a man walking with a woman on the sidewalk. This is like a guy they've held a grudge against. The man, Alex Mahaffey, sees Tony in the passenger seat and takes off running. He realizes, he can't be seen by this guy because he owes him this debt. There's this money that's owed, and you know how mobsters play with their money. You cannot cut them short. So, yeah. Christopher gets out of the vehicle and starts chasing him while Tony gets behind the wheel of Christopher's car and eventually runs the man's leg over, and it breaks his bone, and it's fucked. So, then it's revealed, that Mahaffey is a compulsive gambler who borrowed money from Tony and couldn't pay it back, as well as bad-mouthing him and talking down on him and all this stuff. So this was just like a revenge plot. They saw him and they're like, fuck him, we gotta get him back for this and stuff like that. So, yeah, he couldn't even pay the money back because he lost it all gambling. So Tony and Christopher beat the injured man and tell him to repay his debt before leaving. So in the present, Tony tells Melfi that he's been having nightmares as of late and feels like his best days are behind him. He has another flashback to waking up one morning and going outside to get his daily paper, only to discover that a family of ducks has made his swimming pool their new home. Overjoyed by this, Tony feeds them his leftover breakfast while his family watches from inside, and they're just like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? So this is where we meet the rest of his family. Carmela Soprano is his wife. She gets her children, Meadow and AJ, ready for school. Despite Tony's attempts to get them interested in the ducks, they leave soon afterwards. I'm sorry, I can't really talk. I kind of just woke up not too long ago, and I'm trying to pump out some content. Probably not the best idea, but yeah. So back in the present, Tony tells Melfi that Carmela and Meadow aren't getting along. There's this mother-daughter kind of breakage in their relationship. Obviously, Meadow's kind of going through her teenage years. You guys know how that goes. So Tony begins explaining his career, omitting the violent details, to Melfi. He relates a story about a meeting he attended, which was really regarding one of his family's front operations for money laundering, Barone Sanitation. They have key words, and they call them different company names, so people don't think anything of it. So at the meeting, Tony talks with his lieutenants, Paulie Walnuts, Gualtieri, Silvio Dante, and Sal Big Pussy Bonpensiero about an assassination. But he doesn't tell her about that. It's kind of funny. Big Pussy and Little Pussy. It's funny little nicknames in this show. So according to Silvio, Tony's uncle and senior mob leader Corrado Jr. Soprano is looking to kill a turncoat named Little Pussy Malonga at a fellow friend's restaurant. And again, it's kind of funny. They're like talking about it. He's like, "Oh, you're talking about Little Pussy, not Big Pussy." It makes for some pretty humorous moments. So Tony and Christopher go to the restaurant Vesuvio and greet Junior, who's having dinner with other associates, and the owner, Artie Bucco, who's like good friends with Soprano. They sit down for lunch by themselves and reminisce about their past and all that stuff. So later that day, Tony goes to his mother, Olivia's house. He brings in a CD player he bought for her and catches up. He knows she likes music and stuff like that. He relates a story of how Junior could be making a problem for Artie and asks her to speak to him, then tries to lift her spirits by telling her about a nice retirement home, and she doesn't want to go to a nursing home. That's obviously the fear of a lot of old people, oh, don't put me in there, just let me live peaceful years in my own place. So she refuses his attempt, saying that she doesn't want to go there because she's comfortable where she is. He leaves soon afterward. So back in the present, again, it's an interesting episode. There's some cool dynamics. We're flipping back and forth between the therapy session, which is him talking right here, and all of his gangster activities that took place up until the panic attack. So back in the present, Tony tells Melfi that the day of the panic attack was also his son's birthday, and that they had arranged a party and barbecue for him. As he tries to light the barbecue, he notices the ducks becoming agitated before flying away. At that moment, he begins to experience a panic attack and collapses on the lawn before the family rushes out to help him. Silvio puts out the tire while she dials 911. So the next day, Tony undergoes an MRI scan because they got to check his brain, what is wrong with this guy? So Carmela arrives, coming to see how he's doing. When he expresses fear that he has a brain tumor, the discussion spirals into him complaining about a priest she's gotten friendly with, maybe a little too friendly with, and they kind of have affairs going on in their relationship. They're not perfect. She tells him that the difference between Tony and her is that he's going to hell when he dies, which is interesting because I guess she knows that he's a mobster. I guess everyone kind of has to know that. It's a little too high profile. Tony continues narrating his waste management problem to Melfi. He tells her that a fellow associate, Christopher, was able to handle the problem for him, and she should imply what that means. So in another flashback, Christopher brings the heir to a rival waste management group, Triburo Garbage, to a deli for a drug deal. When the man, Emil Kolar, bends over to snort a line of cocaine, Christopher executes him. Just shoots him in the back of the head, kills him. So Tony then narrates to Melfi his dealings with Junior, and she asks if the man is an important figure in his life, because he's being brought up quite often. So, in the flashback, Tony is arguing with Junior about the little pussy hit. Despite the former's attempt to sway him, Junior is unmoved and sticks to his plan to carry out the hit at Artie's restaurant. He's like, no, you can't do that. He has a really good restaurant. He's holding up a good reputation there. You gotta kind of back off, I guess. So, Melfi tries to talk to Tony more about the ducks in his pool, symbolizing a depression, but he storms out in frustration. Tony takes Olivia and the rest of the family to the Green Grove retirement community. Despite their best intentions, Olivia refuses to accept living there again. She thinks it's a nursing home and they're going to treat her like a little kid, not give her any peace. As she throws a fit about not wanting to become reliant on nurses, Tony has another panic attack and collapses in the middle of the main room. So Tony goes back for another appointment with Melfi and continues to talk about his mother. When she presses him for information, he goes on about RICO statutes. The use of electronic monitoring equipment by government agencies have put the squeeze on his business. Melfi writes out a prescription for him, much to his exasperation. He's like, oh, here we go, the Prozac, yeah. So Tony and Kirsch go to meet with Mahaffey's representative, Herman Hesh Rabkin, at the Bada Bing, a strip club owned by Silvio. Hesh says that Mahaffey can't pay the money, but the conversation turns to Junior's impending hit. Hesh suggests having Artie leave on vacation so that the restaurant will be closed and the hit can't take place. Tony goes to Artie's later and convinces him to take a cruise for the next 2 weeks, despite Charmaine, Ari's wife, trying to argue otherwise. Like, you're taking tickets to go on vacation from this mob. So the next day, Pussy takes Hesh and Mahaffey to a bridge to discuss a payment plan to work out the latter's debt. Their attempt at coercion works, and Mahaffey agrees to their terms, so that storyline kind of gets closed off. So later, Tony is golfing and downs a handful of Prozac Melfi prescribed for him. Definitely not a good idea. He then receives word that the Triburo Garbage Company withdrew their bid because of Emil's disappearance, but then learns that Artie wants to speak with him. The restaurateur reluctantly returns the ticket and says he can't leave. It's not because he, doesn't want to leave and can't leave, but, the tickets are given to him by a mob, a gang, pretty much. So that night, Dr. Melfi is having dinner with a friend when Tony and a woman who is not Carmela, his mistress, Irina, enter. The man expresses surprise when Tony greets her, but assumes that Melfi can't say anything because of confidentiality reasons. Later on, Tony has a tryst with Irina on board his own yacht, the Stugatz, which is obviously going to become a pretty famous thing on the show, I guess. These are going to be long-ass videos. There's a lot to talk about here. It's quite intricate. So Tony goes back to the same restaurant the next night with Carmela, which is hilarious. He tells her that he's gone for therapy and has started taking Prozac, much to her joy. When they get back home, Chris calls to tell him that little Pussy has arrived in town. The next day, Tony and Silvio attend Meadows' softball game and make plans to enact something immediately. Silvio goes to Vesuvio's that night and plants an explosive inside after closing time, destroying the building so the hit can't happen. So, Tony goes back to Melfi and tells her that he thinks he's cured, but she tells him that it's the act of letting out his feelings and not the medication that is working. He eventually breaks down upon realizing that the ducks symbolize his own family, and that their giving birth to ducklings and fleeing are reminiscent of his own feelings about what would happen if Carmela and the kids ever left because of his lifestyle, So at a barbecue later on, Tony and the others console Artie over the loss of the building and promise that he can recoup insurance money from it. Christopher storms off in a huff afterward because he doesn't feel respected for his role in the Kolar hit. Give me a good job, Tony reluctantly concedes that he was wrong and appreciates what Chris did. They eventually hug, blah, blah, blah. So Junior is also driving Olivia to the barbecue. Junior complains about Tony aggravating the little Pussy situation by interfering, and that something may have to be done about Tony. Her only response is to stare out the window. So, yeah, that's really all I have to say. Kind of going through the plot, kind of talking about things. Really interesting show. It's setting up to be a really sick show, actually. This is going to be a long video. I don't know why it is, but we got a lot to talk about. A lot happened in the pilot. It might not be as much in the next episodes because those episodes are 10 minutes shorter, at least 10 to 15 minutes. I don't know how often I will watch these, by the way. We have a lot of content lined up for the week. We have Scratch It movies. Once we finish those, we'll probably do a couple more episodes a week of different TV shows. I'm probably going to get into Game of Thrones soon. I think I'm fully on board with HBO Max, so I think I'm just going to cop that for good and just rock with it because it's pretty dope. And yeah, but I'm going to post this, probably get going on recording my NFL videos, do some homework, go to lunch, go to classes, do all that stuff, and you guys will get an NBA recap later from me. I'm out. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I just don't have much to say, man. See you guys.